Communist Party elders reprimanded Xi Jinping. Is it true? Do they still have influence in a one-man-above-all Communist Party? Let's talk about it in this episode of Elite Politics. Welcome to China Insider. I'm going to name this series called Elite Politics because it's going to cover the situation inside Zhongnanhai, which is the CCP's internal struggles happening behind the scenes. And this week, Nikkei Asia's Katsuji Nakazawa, who is a longtime China analyst, had revealed that during the CCP yearly summer retreat in Beidaihe, Xi Jinping was reprimanded by the party elders. And of course, because Xi Jinping is not attending G20, the reason he gave is because of the domestic economy being a point that other countries could pressure Xi Jinping on. First, let me talk about the bits about the summer retreat because it's very important. It's a look into the power struggle inside the CCP and the dynamic of Xi Jinping with other factions. And then we'll assess the G20 part. Now, party elders who are retired from positions of power but still hold influence held a face-to-face meeting with Xi Jinping and his cabinet, which are basically the members of the Politburo Standing Committee. Now, the key message here is that prior to the annual retreat at Beidaihe, a summer resort, the party elders gathered in a suburb near Beijing, and they expressed frustration over the current landscape in China. Now, the elders were represented by a man named Zhang, and of course, as well as former Premier Li Keqiang, who then went to Beidaihe, that summer resort, to deliver a message face-to-face with Xi Jinping. And it pins the current situations and this direction where Xi Jinping is walking down to as problematic. And if he continues, the situation could threaten the very existence of the CCP itself. And of course, that being the political, economic, and social turmoils that continue to struggle in China, and without any effective countermeasures being taken so far. So of course, the party could lose public support, and that poses a threat to its rule. The one who led the message, Zhang, is actually a former vice president and one of the closest aide to the late president, Jiang. Now, Jiang and Zhang, they were widely viewed as equally influential in that Zhang and Zhang faction. Since Jiang has died, Zhang has been seen as one of the most influential figures in China's elite politics. Now, after receiving unexpectedly harsh criticism from the elders, Xi Jinping then vented his frustration, pointing fingers at his three predecessors, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, and Hu Jintao. Remember, Hu Jintao is the guy he asked to be carried out of the 20th Party Congress. Now, Xi Jinping says, quote, "All the issues that were left by the previous three leaders are on my shoulders." And here the writer says, paraphrasing, "I'm left to deal with their mess to this day." So this is, of course, referring to the reform and opening up era leaders. And when Xi Jinping came into power in 2012, he essentially started to reverse the reform and opening up, going to the Mao style of total political control. Now, the venting left his aides shaken, especially Premier Li, who is currently the number 2 in the party hierarchy. Now, Li is also primarily responsible for the economics. The details here, they seem like it's plausible, but are they really true? Well, online, there's really two arguments here. The first argument is that the details are untrue because party elders have essentially lost their influence following the 20th Party Congress back in November, right? That video of the removal of Hu Jintao in front of public eyes, that's a telltale sign that Xi Jinping has a total grip on power, and with it, the so-called party elders have lost their influence. And for them to gather together near Beijing seems like it's impossible because they're all being closely guarded and watched over by Xi Jinping's people. And many elders have big interest in staying silent on Xi Jinping, fearing that he would retaliate and punish them and their families. Now, the second argument is that it is plausible that the elders represented different factions. They had an open meeting in which they decided to carry out a message for Xi Jinping. Now, right now, it's an open secret that many factions oppose Xi Jinping's rules and do want to remove him from power one way or another. And for the party elders to gather, given any excuse could suffice, for example, a birthday party, and delivering this message, although the original article says reprimand, I think it was more like a warning or like a recommendation or just like a talk, right? From an older person to a relatively younger person to say that what you're doing now isn't working. I don't think it's a threat. Now, the warning comes from a place of personal safety, which is that because if the party falls, the entire system in which these CCP elders and their large families would benefit from will cease to exist. In other words, preventing Xi Jinping from walking down a path to destroy the party isn't out of the sincere worry for the country, but rather it's for their own personal greed to maintain the system. So I want you to come to your own conclusion, read more about this, and people's different experts' opinions on it, and see which one is more plausible to you, or which argument makes more sense to you. But here's my view. I think I largely side with the second argument, which is that I agree that the party elders did gather and did come up with a message for Xi Jinping. So I agree with the assessment for the meeting that took place, and that there actually was sort of a disagreement in the aspect of who is to blame for all of this. But I don't agree with the reason that Xi Jinping isn't going to G20. So let's talk about the first bit. Now, I come from an understanding that the CCP officials, party elders, and whatnot, they're really the representatives of their own factions and interests, right? And that interest is how much money can they profit off of power, how many of their relatives and offsprings can live overseas or be in positions of power within the Communist Party, and how much money they can really make. And even those who have retired, they still have a significant interest in keeping the CCP alive. Because, I mean, there is rampant corruption in the system, and it is real in the Communist Party. With that being said, a meeting with Xi Jinping to talk about stopping him on this path to destroy the CCP, it's not for the benefit of trying to guide somebody, it's so that they themselves can still sustain the system in a way that is not going to go down, right? Seeing the eventual destruction, that vision to the party elders is like scary, because they can no longer enjoy all of the positive things in their view that comes with being a party member. I really doubt that they went in and started screaming at Xi Jinping or started hitting him with a stick, right? Rather, it's more like a message delivery that represents the interest of all the factions that oppose Xi Jinping. And basically like a warning in the way that if you continue to drive the road down like this, it's going to cause us to lose everything. And ironically, they're trying to suggest an alternative win-win scenario in which Xi Jinping and the rest of the party can coexist and do so, sustaining the life of the party. Now, aren't all of the elders watched closely? I mean, of course they are. I think, however, though, they each have had a decent amount of power and influence while they were in power, and they can use any excuse, right? I mean, if it's somebody's 80th birthday and you say that, well, you won't let me go to a birthday celebration, I don't think that's possible. And it's not going to be like 100% extreme that everybody sits in their retirement home and just does nothing all day, right? Playing mahjong, whatever. So I think especially Zheng Qinghong, he's had, as the former head of intelligence to the CCP, there's no way that he doesn't have ways in which he can hold meetings. I think that's a little too extreme. But I do think the party elders, what they say is something that matter to Xi Jinping. The reason is why Xi Jinping is currently doing the things he's doing. Well, we know that Xi Jinping's response to that message was that he felt like everything has been blamed onto him, when in reality, it is these other people who's done it wrong, right? And I think Xi Jinping's mission statement so far is that he wants to drive the country backwards, even though he intentionally is doing this trying to preserve the party. But to other people outside of his perspective, they're seeing it as him driving them down to a road of destruction. But to Xi Jinping himself, he doesn't see it that way. Now, the second part is why Xi Jinping isn't going to G20. Now, I really disagree with the assessment in the article. Now, the article says that Xi Jinping isn't going because of economic reasons, right? Because if Xi does go, he's going to get a lot of pressure from other countries because of the recent economic downturn, their potential recession. That's affecting the global economy, so he's going to get a lot of pressure from other countries. But I think the main reasons in which I understand why G20 is not happening for Xi, one of them is directly related to India, because India, of course, is going to get the center of attention while there, and then China's potentially sidelined in terms of, despite the G20 being a multilateral platform where things like the bilateral relationships, they don't necessarily matter as much, but just the fact that another country could steal the spotlight from Xi Jinping, I think that matters a lot. But it's also, again, not going to be the main reason, because I think the most important part of this is that Xi Jinping is really fearing for his own personal safety, right? So from Beidaihe, whatever happened there, okay, in the end, it looks like it did affect him in the ways that he thinks somebody's out there to get him. Now, just to give you an idea, so 2 times in the history of the CCP, top leadership was removed from power after they left the country to go to North Korea. Very interesting, okay? So the first guy is General Hua Guofeng. Now, Hua Guofeng was the direct appointed successor to Mao Zedong after he died. And so when Hua Guofeng came back from North Korea, Deng Xiaoping launched a bloodless coup and removed him from power. And he actually got a pretty good treatment. He got to resign and then, remove himself from power. Forced to, but basically, he got to survive. But he was removed from power while he was outside of the country. And then the second guy is Zhao Ziyang. He also came back from North Korea, and then he was removed from power. So for Xi Jinping to think that flying out of the country is safe, he's probably very afraid of that happening. The idea that he leaves the country and then suddenly when he comes back, Beijing is no longer his. And not only that, in an episode I recently covered how an article openly called for a coup attempt against Xi Jinping. And that was published in a pro-CCP newspaper. So check it out here if you haven't already. But the gist of that piece of article was basically condemning everything Xi Jinping has done, right? In the same tone as what the party elder has said to Xi Jinping. And in the end, they pin everything on Xi Jinping. So they offered a solution, which is calling for his removal from power to solve all of the issues that they blamed him for it. Now, that article came out on the same day that Xi Jinping left to go to South Africa. I mean, coincidence or not, this is a really strong message that was sent to Xi Jinping. I mean, imagine if you're Xi Jinping, right? And on the plane to leave the country, someone shows you this article, right? In which it's calling for your removal from power while you're on your way to another country. Would you turn your plane back? Or it doesn't feel good, right? Now, if you think about it, dictators also really fear for their own safety all the time. In fact, I think the more power they have, the more that they fear that it's going to be gone. Now, in that episode, I also talked about something interesting, which is how Xi Jinping and party elites are quite superstitious. In fact, CCP members, right? It's a part of it. It's the Chinese cultural tradition to believe in these superstitions and higher prophecies. But it's also another aspect because some of them do sound pretty convincing. There's no way that he doesn't look around for certain, let's just call it prophecies in which indicates otherwise of what could potentially happen to him, right? Think about it. He's very afraid of death. He literally cleansed the entire rocket force and purged the top military leadership in that rocket force, which, by the way, holds the key button to press for the nuclear launch, as well as precision strike missiles. If anything, right, if there was a coup attempt, the one particular military force that has the power to shoot him down from the sky is the rocket force. Now, if the rumors are true, the current defense minister, the one that was sanctioned by the US, Li Shangfu, he's also being investigated for ties to the rocket force. So this ongoing purge of the military is a big sign that he doesn't trust his own protection. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, why he's never going out of the country, unless he really has to. One of them is BRICS, the other one is going to Moscow. And so right now he's installing the yes men as commanders in the military, but then he also wants to ensure that whatever he thinks is happening with the military, he has to do it in a way that can remove all the factors that would start a coup, which it's terribly interesting, right? This isn't some regular confident believer with a total grip on power. This is like fear-driven, that he could be removed anytime. Now, speaking of the rocket force, so I came across this a few days ago, right? So one of the prophecy books I didn't really talk about last time, it's called the Book of Beidaihe, or Pushing the Back. The Tang Dynasty prophecy book is written to predict, I believe, everything correctly until that last 100 years, so the 1900s and onwards. But if you go to Beidaihe in the 46th image, here it's a prophecy that has a picture of a person, potentially a warrior, but it's a prophecy that states in the first line here says, one military man carries a bow. Second line says, he mouthed, I am a white-headed man. And then the third line is, the eastern door is hidden with a golden sword. And the last line is, warriors arrive from the back door to enter the palace. So coincidentally, I thought this was interesting because the way I interpret it, if it's correct, the first line is one military man carrying a bow, which can describe a military action, right? It could be somebody with a projectile, could be missiles, could be guns, could be weapons. A bow is a metaphor for projectiles, right? Now, it could also be that, it could be the rocket force, who knows? Or Xi Jinping himself, right? Being a military background, he rose through the ranks as a military man. So, of course, now it also indicates that he doesn't really have the full control of the military. And the second line here says, he mouths, I am a white-headed man. And that can also have a two-way interpretation. White-headed man in Chinese can describe a person with white hair. It can also describe a type of bird called light-vented bulbul. And if you look at the pictures here, it's very interesting because the other prophecy I covered the other day, the iron plate map, it also shows Xi Jinping as a white bird that crashed and died. And the other four birds are the first four leaders of the CCP. So white bird, Xi Jinping, white hair, who knows? But I mean, it can also be the American bald eagle, right? Could it be that it's a fear that a Reaper missile is going to hit him and assassinate him? I don't know. But here's the interesting part. So the third line is hidden with a gold sword behind the eastern door. Eastern, of course, referring to China, eastern sun, right? Or eastern part of the world. A golden sword hidden behind the eastern door. Now, gold in the 5 elements in Chinese alchemy means iron, metal, metalloids, things that are, metal, right? It can also indicate a hidden missile or some sort of a sharp, pointy object. Now, the fourth line here, warriors arrive from the back door to enter the palace. This literally just means somebody is attempting a coup, right? Very interesting stuff. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that these dictators, there's many different things out there to get them. And if they really look anywhere, they feel like there's crisis going on at all places. But the idea of Xi Jinping not going to G20, I personally think that it's because he fears for his life. And if the party elders are warning him to turn back, are they also secretly planning a coup? And the prophecies are so accurate for some reason. At least I believe them. But all we know at this point is that the situation inside the Chinese Communist Party is getting much worse. And the idea that post-20 partieth Congress, Xi Jinping would have a tight grip on power seems to be now displayed as unstable insecurity and crisis all around him. So the crisis inside the party is going to continue. We're just getting started. All right, if you enjoy the content so far, make sure to like this video, comment below your thoughts. Do you think that it's plausible that party elders did actually threaten him, or are the prophecies also going to reign true? We'll see. All right, and also make sure to subscribe to our channel, and that'll help us grow. All right, I'm David Zhang. This is China Insider. We'll see you next time.